Awesome. Well, first of all, once again, glad you could do this and hope you're doing well.
Yeah,
Of
thanks. Sam, thanks for having me.
course, my pleasure. I always find it fun when I see you pop up, especially in a movie, because it always seems like a very conscientious choice. And even just over the last couple of years, I feel like both TV and film, it's clear that like more people are looking for you as opposed to you looking for them. And that's kind of a fun, I think, evolution of an actor, because at the beginning, I'm sure, like a job, what do I need to do? All right, great. It's not porn. We're in. And then ever so slightly, you get to start saying, well, I hope it's not this. And then you get to start saying no eventually. And that's a really exciting thing. And I think even just the last couple of years, you can tell these are things that are exciting and people sought you out and you were excited to do it. And I'm just sort of curious, how does it feel as that evolution starts when you go from like I hope I can do this to I know I can do this to I know I have a career.
It it was like fits and starts, you
Yeah.
know. It's like the my very I think very first job was like I had one line in a Dunkin' Donuts radio spot
Yeah.
and and my manager called and was like, "You got it." And I was like, "Great. Should I let the restaurant know that I'm quitting now or on Monday after my double or and she was like, "Oh, that's you're gonna make like $400. Like you
Yeah.
can't like walk away from
They,
your
they might give you a gift card too.
yeah, right. There might be donuts on set. Um, and so it feels like this. It's always like I've been very fortunate for it to be like two steps forward and one step back a little
Yeah.
where you think sort of like living in the future, I guess, but thinking, oh, this job signifies this thing or means this or this it'll be the effect is beyond this job and then that doesn't pan out the way that you imagine it will. It pans out in some terrible way or some fantastic way that I couldn't have imagined, and it really feels like at least within the little bubble of my own existence that really like um I was just so lucky to be a part of the White Lotus and that sort of after that in the last whatever that's been a year and a half or something, it feels like the first time that I've really thought like, oh, I might have a place in this business um, for longer than I could have dreamed of,
Oh yeah.
or the version that I have dreamed of is like slowly coming into shape, which is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. And I think audiences always notice before like the industry. Like you said, the last couple of years where people are like, oh, I think we want to give him money and give him consistent work. But I think like for audiences, it might have even been like obvious child of like, oh, who's this guy? And that's currency in that of like, oh no, I'll tell you who this guy is. Like, please keep asking. And to
Yeah,
what you
it's
said with like just work and like, oh, this is, I'm gonna quit my job and do this. Like, no, slow down. But you'll be on a set, and that was everyone at one point. Being the Ricardos or Miss Sloan, like Jessica Chastain was just in school one day hoping she does it. You're looking at people who have multiple Academy Awards, and they all were just like, I don't know if I can do this. I
yeah.
interviewed Aaron Sorkin. He was like talking as if we were equal writers, and I was like, "Fuck you, sir. We're not the same." Like, I appreciate it, but like, you have an Oscar. We both have trouble writing and starting, but I feel like once we get going, it goes a little different. But
There's
everyone
also,
is in the same boat at one point.
yeah, like Colin Hanks and I were talking about uh when you're like starting any job and you're really like grasping at straws.
Yeah,
Like you're really just trying to figure out like how to like find a way into this thing and to try to lay some foundation that is honest and hopefully organic and sort of like gives you this place to start from to build off of for the remainder of whether it's a movie or a series or whatever it is. But anyone who's uh well, I don't need to talk about other people. I hope never to put on the front of being like, I knew it the minute I read it.
yeah,
It's like,
no,
no, like I show up like day one with so many ideas and so many questions and so many blank spaces, and then so much of that is filled in by the director or seeing what the DP is doing, or your, castmates, and like being present to them and realizing like, oh, you're offering this thing that informs what I want to do, in a way I can't do alone,
Yeah.
that I can't just sit in a room and like build a performance, that it ultimately is a shared thing.
Yeah, you hope that every set everyone wants to be there, one, because God, it's a better job than most. So like why be upset?
Yeah.
And that everyone brings a different experience that's useful. I mean, I like with a friend of the family, like, Anna Paquin was a child actor. Colin Hanks grew up with family doing it. Leo was in fashion beforehand. Like there's so many different views and they all make for a different point of view. And I think you're on a good set. I mean, at least from what I understand from, talking to people for 15 years, if everyone's contributing, but no one's like, my idea is the best. It's more like, what about? And then, Kevin Smith jokes about this a lot. It's like being a director is mostly just saying yes or no, or not two, not three. Yes. Okay, try that. It's just listening to what
Yeah.
everyone smarter than me has to say.
Yeah. There's also, I think, we got really lucky, um, on a friend of the family that, each of the people you mentioned has had their own, path to the four of us,
Right.
working together, but also are lovely people, and so like are pretty honest about what that path has been, and then also is like curious and accepting of what the other people's path has been. And so then you get this thing where hopefully the sum is greater than the parts, like you don't have four people just kind of acting alone, and then an editor has to
Yeah.
work
Figure
together
it out.
to
Yeah.
build a moment, but that hopefully, um, that kind of, I don't know, to be too grand, but just like generosity
Sure.
of spirit between two people working together then creates a space to build something special, as opposed to two fighters in their corners, and then
Yeah.
you call action and they go in and like duke it out and then retreat again to be like this motherfucker
Oh, yeah.
over
And
here,
there's definitely people who it's not even like the fight, it's that I'm not usually not the focus. Like I remember I had an actor I'm friendly with tell me about a set they were on with two of the biggest actors you could have, and just the first couple takes just weren't working because they do things so differently, and they weren't, there wasn't any animosity. They were thrilled that they were doing this, but just they work so differently that the
right?
first couple takes everyone could tell like, oh, they're in two different movies still. We have to get them into a third one, or one has to go into the other, and that can be fun, I'm sure, but also, it's not your money when it's the producer going, oh shit, we're burning daylight. I thought this was going to be easy. You
Have you
want
seen?
everyone to be in the same boat, ideally.
There's a I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but it's not even, I guess it's outtakes, but it's like it's Brando and De Niro in the score,
Yeah,
and it's really cool to see them, just as a little like putting people on pedestals, being like,
yeah,
look at these guys working, but
they're
also
good. Look
like,
at them.
yeah, but also, De Niro is like sticking very much like to the script and has been
Yeah,
like, I'd like to rehearse and know what we're doing here, and I've built out what these moments mean to me. And Brando is like kind of fucking with it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, is he's sticking to the story, but like is dancing around and then finding the lines
yeah,
and then dancing around and kind of improvising stuff, and neither is like, at least you don't feel De Niro being frustrated by it or Brando being like, come on, man, play my game. Like
yeah.
they're just
They're
doing this
doing what
kind
makes
of
sense to
wild
them. Yeah,
dance. Yeah. And are also allowing the other to be as they are. You know what I mean? They're not
yeah,
like, why do you do it that way? Do it this way. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's really cool.
The
And also some of the stuff Brando's putting out there, like, isn't gold,
no,
but there's Colin passed on this wonderful phrase that we did a take, and I was like, oh boy, I don't think that was particularly of value. And he was like, I don't know, man. I think there's some gold in that muddy stream.
yeah.
And I was like, oh, thanks, dude.
I mean, that is
Thank
the
you.
good feeling of when you watch someone, you're like, he might be the best at this. Go, oh, that sucked. All right, great. Okay, cool.
Or
You're
even
you're
just like,
allowed to do that.
yeah, it's not that every moment in every take was like an enlightened,
Yeah,
perfect choice in the way that then, as a very young actor, you might, or I did certainly, watch films not realizing, you know, that's 10 takes from both sides and three different angles, and they're building a thing. And I'm just looking at it going like, oh, what a perfect choice.
Oh
What
yeah,
an amazing, the tension they built. And you're like, well, that's the writing and the way they shot it and the performance and the editing and the music. And, it's like there's
yeah,
so much going into it that
oh, yeah.
to see it
Cut
in
to
its raw
you.
form was like helpful.
Yeah, cut to you walking into the courtroom of Miss Sloan, and you're doing it how many times? You're like, I didn't know there were that many ways to walk in silently.
And even when I saw it going like, oh, I don't think that was the right choice. I think this would have been better this way, and not in a sort of like
Whereas
I
everyone else
suck
around
kind
you
of
is like,
way.
oh, he's showing up, and you're like, okay, it's working, but also like, God damn, I would have done it differently if I'd known.
Totally, yeah. Or like, I did this movie Diane, and it
Yeah,
wasn't until like Kent and I were doing a couple Q&As, and Mary Kay was there, and Kent was answering like interview questions, and I got a broader understanding of what his intent was than even when we made it. And I was like, oh
you're sitting there nodding, but going,
man,
yeah,
I wish I'd thought to do it this way. And maybe at the time being more like, Jake, you screwed it up. And
yeah.
now trying to be a little easier and just be like, oh, build that into the next one. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Or ask more questions next time, or try to be more a
Yeah,
part of the
he
thing,
still felt like I did a good job. So okay, I knew I did something good, but now I have another tool that I can just like put onto the belt.
Yeah, yeah. And God, you just hope to get an opportunity to like use that tool. You know what I mean? It's like,
So far, I
yeah,
feel like you're on safe ground with that. But it's got to be an interesting feeling in the last year or two to not necessarily have as much anxiety. I know that part of it is always like, okay, phone's never going to ring, it's over. Can I get my shift back? But the start being like, oh, okay, I have more offers than time. This is new. Okay, I get to like choose two of these three things or one of these three things as opposed to I have one. Okay, I'm gonna do this because it's the one.
yeah,
That's got to
yeah.
be
It's really, um, it's a little hard to like process.
yeah. Because you're
You know
not
what I
used to
mean?
being you're like, no, I can't say no to a job. I need that job.
Yeah, it's like there had been stuff that I would maybe say no to, and be there'd be a couple things that I was like, I'm just not going to do that,
Yeah,
and everybody would be okay with it. My reps and everyone was like, that makes sense.
yeah,
And then there'd be stuff that my reps would be saying like, you don't need to do this, and I'd be like, are you sure? Are
yeah.
we
This sounds
sure I don't
fun.
need to be doing
Yeah,
this? Like, I feel like we should do this job,
yeah,
and that's why you have good reps to
yeah.
be like this guy Scott Galloway. He says like it's hard to see the label from inside the bottle. So it's like great to be surrounded by people who go like, that's not real. Or when I go like, why isn't this happening? And they're like, easy, pal.
Yeah.
Um, like
We want to
slow
make
your
money
roll.
too. Don't worry. Like,
Yeah, 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 exactly. Yes, yeah.
yeah, like
We're in the money making business as well.
yeah. Trust me, we'd sell you out if we could. This is just not working out in exactly the same way. So consider this a good thing. Listen, I
Right.
always think it's funny when that happens. Like anyone who complains about that wouldn't be doing the exact same thing. But you know, there's it's just funny when you see it and it's like, oh, but that movie's good too. Ah, isn't that what a fun surprise? You
Yeah.
did it for the money and it was fun because who cares either way? Somebody enjoys everything. But, you know,
Yes.
there's a fun math to be made of like, oh, I think this worked out. Nobody's gonna be any the wiser. I can say I did it for the art. All right, put an extra story on the house. Uh, so this is awesome, and I think it's gonna be exciting to do this again. A couple of years down the line, just to see like how much more you've been able to say no to. Or
Just keep a tally.
yeah,
Here's the
exactly. Like,
script. I passed on this.
what's
Regret
good?
it now.
Yeah,
Glad I passed on this. Yeah.
be like, so that one won the Oscar. So have you contacted that guy to tell him that was a mistake? You're like, no, we don't do that game. But no, this is a pleasure. Like I said, going even back to Obvious Child, it was ooh, who's this guy? And I always kind of perk up when I see you in something. So
Thanks, man.
it's
Thank you so much.
been a good year or so for perking up for that. So it's
No, man, I really appreciate that. Thank you
oh,
very much. Yeah, I'm yeah pleasantly surprised
there
myself.
you go. It's a good start if you're surprised. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, man.
Awesome.